U-347 hours, South China Sea, somewhere between the Spratly Islands and the Philippine coast. The guided missile destroyer USS Rafael Peralta is conducting a routine freedom of navigation patrol. The sea is glass flat. The night is quiet. And then the SPS-73 surface search radar inside CIC, the ship's brain, paints a contact bearing 270 18 nautical miles out and closing fast. Too fast. On a direct intercept course. What followed would become the most dangerous 46 minutes in the South China Sea this decade. 349. The contact is identified. A People's Liberation Army Navy Type 52D guided missile destroyer. China's so-called Chinese Aegis. And I say so-called because calling a Type 52 an Aegis is like calling a Honda Civic a Formula One car, because they both have steering wheels. Behind it, a Type 54A frigate trails at 12 nautical miles. 2 ships. Orders from Beijing were clear. Intercept the American destroyer, shadow it aggressively, and send a message that these waters belong to China. The captain of the Chinese destroyer had been handpicked for this mission. Aggressive, loyal to the party, eager to prove himself. He had a plan. He had orders. He had what he believed was a warship capable of challenging the United States Navy. But Beijing was about to learn, again, why challenging the U.S. Navy in open water remains the single most spectacularly stupid decision any military can make. Let's back up, because to understand why this confrontation matters, you need to understand what's at stake in the South China Sea. Every single year, over $5.3 trillion in global trade passes through these waters. 1/3 of the world's shipping, oil tankers feeding Japan and South Korea, container ships carrying everything Europe buys from Asia, fishing vessels from the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, nations that actually border these waters and have legitimate claims. China claims roughly 90% of the South China Sea. Their evidence, a map from 1947 drawn with 9 dashes and absolutely 0 basis in international law. The International Court in The Hague ruled the claim illegal in 2016. Beijing's response? They ignored it and started building artificial islands with military runways on top of coral reefs. And that's exactly why the USS Rafael Peralta is here. An Arleigh Burke-class Flight 3 destroyer. 510 feet of American diplomacy. 96 vertical launch cells loaded with SM-6 missiles, Tomahawks, and SM interceptors. The anti-submarine radar. The most advanced naval radar on planet Earth. Capable of tracking targets the size of a baseball from over 200 nautical miles away. The crew, battle-tested. The captain, calm enough to sip coffee while watching Chinese warships stumble toward him on radar. His exact words to the bridge team: track them, document everything, and let's see how badly they want to embarrass themselves tonight. Before we see exactly how badly this goes for Beijing, hit that subscribe button, because what happens at timestamp 0417 is something China wishes the world never saw. Xiaom 358. The Type 52D closes to 8 nautical miles and does something that changes everything. The ESM suite, the Rafael Peralta's electronic ears, detects a spike. The Chinese destroyer has activated its Type 346B fire control radar and painted the American ship. In naval warfare, this is the electromagnetic equivalent of pointing a loaded shotgun at someone's face and resting your finger on the trigger. It is one breath away from launching missiles. On any other ship, with any other navy, this might cause panic. Aboard the Rafael Peralta, the tactical action officer doesn't even raise his voice. He simply announces, hostile fire control, radar, Type 346B, bearing 270, tracking. The captain nods. Noted. Continue documenting. Here's why the Americans aren't worried. The Type 346B radar has a tracking range of roughly 150 nautical miles on a good day, with perfect atmospheric conditions, which it almost never has. The anti-submarine aboard the Rafael Peralta, 300 nautical miles on a bad day. The American ship had been tracking the Chinese destroyer since before it even left port, The Type 52 carries 64 vertical launch cells. The Rafael Peralta carries 96. The Chinese ship's YJ-18 anti-ship missiles have a range of roughly 330 miles. Impressive on paper. But the SM-6 missile sitting inside American cells can intercept those YJ-18s at ranges the Chinese can't even detect yet. The technological gap between these two ships isn't measured in years. It's measured in generations. This is a flip phone trying to challenge a quantum computer, a bicycle racing a fighter jet, a chihuahua barking at a grizzly bear, and the chihuahua just pointed a radar at the grizzly. 4-9. The Type 52D accelerates to 28 knots and begins closing the distance. The frigate behind it follows. Two ships converging on one American destroyer, clearly attempting an intimidation pincer. But the Chinese didn't know what was lurking beneath the surface 60 feet below them. And what happened next was the electronic warfare equivalent of bringing a flashlight to challenge the sun. 412. The Rafael Peralta's commanding officer authorizes full activation of the NSLQ 327 SWIP Block 3 Electronic Warfare Suite. If you're not familiar with SWIP Block 3, think of it as a digital black hole. It doesn't just jam enemy radar. It reaches into enemy electronics, grabs every signal, every frequency, every emission, and turns them all into useless noise. The effect on the Chinese destroyer is immediate and catastrophic. On 413. The Type 346B radar, Beijing's pride, their answer to American Aegis, begins seeing ghosts. Dozens of false contacts appear across the Chinese operator's screen. The single American destroyer multiplies into 5, then 12, then 37 phantom ships, scattered across the entire South China Sea. Some appear to be moving at 200 knots. One shows up directly behind the Chinese ship. Another registers as being airborne at 40,000 feet. The Chinese radar operator does what every overwhelmed operator does. He cycles through frequencies. He switches modes. He increases power. He decreases power. He turns the entire system off and back on again. Nothing works. The American electronic warfare suite adapts faster than the Chinese can think. Here's the part Beijing really doesn't want you to know. While the Chinese crew is fighting phantom contacts, the Rafael Peralta's intelligence collection systems were having a field day. Every frequency the Chinese radar switched to, recorded. Every communication between the destroyer and the frigate, intercepted. Every encryption protocol, cataloged. The Americans discovered that the Type 52D's communication encryption was based on architecture from 2011, the year the iPhone 4s came out. Beijing's flagship destroyer was protecting its communications with technology older than most TikTok users. One American intelligence officer would later note that the 46-minute encounter yielded more signals intelligence about China's naval electronic warfare capabilities than the previous 18 months of satellite surveillance combined. The Chinese captain came to intimidate. Instead, he was literally giving the Americans a step-by-step tutorial on how to defeat every electronic system on his ship. If you're enjoying watching Beijing learn this lesson the hard way, smash that like button. Because in 3 minutes, things get so much worse for China's Navy that it's almost unfair. Almost. 421. The Chinese captain, frustrated, blind, and running out of options, makes his most dangerous decision yet. He orders his helmsman to alter course directly toward the Rafael Peralta. A deliberate collision course. Closing speed, 31 knots combined. At 5 nautical miles, the American bridge team can see the Chinese warship's navigation lights through their binoculars. The bow wave is visible. This is not a drill. This is not posturing. A 6,000-ton warship is driving straight at them. The Rafael Peralta's captain gives 3 orders in 11 seconds. First, launch the MH-60 or Seahawk helicopter already sitting on the flight deck. Rotors turning. It's airborne in 90 seconds, immediately positioning itself directly above the Chinese destroyer with its dipping sonar active, letting Beijing know that everything below the surface is being watched too. Second, activate the NSLQ-32 in full offensive jamming mode. The Chinese ship's radar screens don't just show ghosts anymore. They go completely dark. Every screen, every display. For 9 agonizing seconds, the most advanced surface combatant in the Chinese Navy is electronically blind. Third, and this is the one that changes everything, the captain authorizes a single transmission on an open frequency. Not to the Chinese. To someone else entirely. 126, 6 nautical miles behind the Chinese destroyer. The ocean begins to churn. The Virginia-class fast-attack submarine USS Montana surfaces to periscope depth, then raises its photonics mast, deliberately, so that every radar in the Chinese battle group detects it simultaneously. The Montana had been trailing the Chinese ships for 11 days. 11 days of undetected operations beneath a Chinese destroyer that never once knew it was there. 11 days during which the Montana had mapped every acoustic signature, every propeller cavitation pattern, every engine harmonic of both Chinese warships. If this had been a shooting war, both Chinese ships would have been torpedoed on day 1. The Chinese captain sees the submarine contact appear on his barely functioning radar, and the blood drains from his face. He's surrounded. American destroyer ahead. American submarine behind. American helicopter above. And somewhere beyond radar range, he knows, everyone knows, a carrier strike group is watching everything. The math is simple and devastating. If shooting starts, neither Chinese ship survives the first 4 minutes. Not 4 hours. 4 minutes. 19 seconds after the submarine surfaces, the Chinese destroyer begins turning. Not toward the American ship. Away from it. The confrontation is over. But the humiliation is just beginning. Drop a comment below telling me what you think the Chinese captain should have done differently. Though honestly, the answer is stayed in port. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're about to miss the most embarrassing part. I'm turning 38. The Type 52 to reduces speed to 15 knots, then 12, then 8 white. Official communications from the Chinese destroyer to fleet headquarters in Zhangjiang report. Successful completion of scheduled maritime patrol exercise. Scheduled. As if getting electronically blinded, acoustically mapped, and strategically surrounded was on the itinerary. The trailing Type 54A frigate, which contributed absolutely nothing to this entire encounter except burning diesel fuel, turns south and begins its 2-day crawl back to Hainan Island. Its captain presumably spent the return trip updating his resume. 447. The Seahawk helicopter returns to the Rafael Peralta's flight deck with enough recorded data to fill a classified library. The Montana slips back beneath the waves without a sound. Within an hour, you would never know an American submarine had been there at all. Meanwhile, the intelligence haul is staggering. The Rafael Peralta's electronic warfare team cataloged over 270 distinct electronic emissions from the Chinese battle group. Radar frequencies across every band. The Type 346B operates on communication encryption keys that would allow American signals intelligence to monitor Chinese naval communications for months before Beijing even realizes the compromise. Infrared and acoustic signatures so detailed that future American torpedoes and anti-ship missiles could be programmed to identify a Type 52D from 50 miles away in any weather condition. The Chinese Navy sent 2 warships to intimidate 1 American destroyer. What they actually sent was a floating encyclopedia of their own vulnerabilities, delivered directly to the one Navy on Earth, best equipped to exploit every single one of them. They donated intelligence, and the Americans didn't even have to ask. 500. Dawn breaks over the South China Sea. The Rafael Peralta resumes its freedom of navigation patrol as if nothing happened. The crew rotates through breakfast. Coffee is poured. The ship's barber opens at 0700. Beijing wanted to send a message that the South China Sea belongs to China. The message the world actually received was very different. 1 American destroyer, operating alone, electronically dismantled, acoustically exposed, and strategically outmaneuvered 2 Chinese warships simultaneously, while a submarine they never detected watched the entire thing from underneath them. The People's Liberation Army Navy has 234 warships. They are building more every year. They have aircraft carriers now. They have hypersonic missiles. On paper, they are the largest navy in the world by hull count. But hull count doesn't win wars. Training wins wars. Technology wins wars. Experience wins wars, and the United States Navy has more combat experience in blue water operations than every other navy on the planet. Combined as Navy as a parade fleet, with fresh paint and copied blueprints. The U.S. Navy is a war-fighting machine with a century of dominance and absolutely zero intention of giving it up. There's a reason the South China Sea isn't called the South China Lake, because every time Beijing sends a warship to prove otherwise, an American destroyer sends it home with its tail between its legs and its entire electronic warfare playbook in American hands. Stick to building artificial islands. The ocean still belongs to the Navy. If you enjoyed watching Beijing learn why you don't challenge the United States Navy, hit subscribe and the bell. We drop videos every week showing you what happens when the world's militaries make the mistake of thinking they can match American firepower. See you in the next one. Bye for now.